Hi, welcome to your 9 a.m. gentle yoga class. We're going to start in a seated position, just a gentle, easy seated, whatever is comfortable for you. If you want to be up on a block, if that's easier on your hips, you can do that. Pillow or a blanket works well, or you can be on the floor, crisscross applesauce. Once you find your comfortable seated position, we'll start out by taking a few shoulder rolls, shrugging your shoulders up to your ears and releasing them. Maybe shrug them again, let them go. And if you take a few shoulder rolls back, then you might want to roll them forward. And then we'll do a gentle neck stretch. Reach your fingertips out towards the sides and down towards the mat, and drop your right ear to your right shoulder. If you want to use your right hand to gently guide your head down, you can, as long as you're not pushing weight into it or pulling it down. Take one more breath here. And let the head float back up to center. And drop your left ear to your left shoulder. Reach down through the fingertips so that that reach is creating the space between your opposite ear and shoulder. And if you want to use the left hand to guide your head, you can gently. Take one more breath before you let your head come back to center. And then this time, sitting up nice and tall with your chin lifted just a little bit, with your gaze straight forward, turn your head over towards your right shoulder. And you want to make sure to keep the chin lifted so that it's not tucked in towards your collarbone. Just straight ahead, straight to the side. Come back to center. Look over to your left side. Return to center. And then roll out your shoulders one more time if you need to, if that feels good. And we'll take a seated side stretch. Bring your arms up overhead and then release your right hand down to the mat. Your left hand comes overhead and draw the shoulder back a little bit so that it opens the chest. Come back up to the center, over to the other side. Come back up to center, reach tall, and then release your arms down to the sides. We'll move into a child's pose. So you can rock forward onto your hands and knees to get there, or you can swing your legs out in front of you and roll over. But for child's pose, bring your knees wide to the edge of your mat and bring your big toes to touch. Send your hips back to your heels and reach forward, letting your hands slide along the mat. And if you want to, if it feels good, you can rest your forehead on the ground. And child's pose is your resting pose, so you can come back to it at any point in time during your practice. And in your child's pose, we're going to take another side stretch. We're staying in child's pose and walking or sliding our hands over towards the right side. This might feel a little bit different than the side stretch that you just did. Slide your hands back to center and over to the left side. And then bring your hands back to center one more time. And then come up to tabletop position. So you're stacking your shoulders over wrists, hips over knees, on your hands and knees. And from here, we'll take a few cat-cows and we'll start to connect our breath to the movement. So as you inhale, drop your belly, lift your tailbone, pull your shoulders back away from your ears. Maybe your gaze comes up a little bit. As you exhale, round your spine, let your head and your neck hang loose. Inhale to cow, exhale to cat. Inhale to cow, exhale to cat. And one more, matching your breath to your movement before you come back to a neutral tabletop position. And for thread the needle, our next pose, shift your weight into your left hand. Inhale your right hand up to the ceiling And as you exhale, slide it under your armpit. And you can stay lifted like this, or you can drop your shoulder, maybe your cheek, all the way down to the mat. You've got the option to slide your left hand forward if that feels good. And take 5 breaths here. If you slid your left hand forward, you can start to bring it back under your shoulder. Press yourself up and lift your right hand one more time. Set it down. And we'll set up for thread the needle on the other side. Shift your weight into your right palm, fingers spread wide and pressed into the mat. Inhale your left arm up, exhale, slide it under your armpit. Decide how low you want to go on this side. You can bring the shoulder all the way down if you want, cheek to the mat. You can stay lifted. You could also place a pillow or a block under that shoulder if you want, and then slide that right hand forward. And then bring your right hand under your shoulder, press yourself up, lift your left hand to the ceiling again before setting it down. And then take whatever organic movement that you need here. If you want to snake side to side or take a few more cat-cows. We're just warming up the spine, moving it in all different directions. And from here, we'll take a downward facing dog. I like to move my hands one handprint forward on the mat, so I've got some extra space. Tuck your toes, lift your knees, lift your hips, and pedal out your down dog, straightening one leg and then the other, pressing the heels towards the mat. And they may or may not sit down on the mat, as long as they're reaching towards it, and that's what you want. And bend the knees as much as you need to so that you can create a long straight line from your wrists through your shoulders to your hips. So you're pressing your heart towards your thighs, pressing equal weight in your hands and your feet, and then gaze forward to the spot on your mat between your hands and baby step, tiptoe your feet all the way between your hands and come into a forward fold. You can have your feet hip width apart, or you can have your big toes touching. And let the top half of your body hang loose. Your head and your neck and your arms. You can sway side to side if you want. Shake your head yes. Shake your head no. Shake your head yes again. And we'll slowly roll up one vertebra at a time. Start to engage your core just a little bit, sucking in your belly button so that you can support your spine as you roll up. Your head and neck stay completely relaxed until the very, very end, when your head is the last thing to come up. And shine your palms forward, drawing your shoulders down and back, away from your ears. Take a moment to root down through your feet. Shift your weight forward and back from the balls of your feet to the heels until you find that in between where you feel completely balanced. And lift up your toes. Maybe try setting them down one at a time. Until you have a good grip on the mat and you feel very stable, very solid. And then keep a little micro bend in the knees so that you're not locking your knees. Inhale your arms up overhead for extended mountain. Maybe take a little back bend here. And then as you exhale, bring your hands through heart center, come into a forward fold. Inhale to a halfway lift. You can bring your hands to your shins or your thighs. Squeeze your shoulder blades together. Suck your belly button in so you've got a flat back. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, sweep your arms up overhead, coming all the way up to extended mountain again. This time, as you come down, bend your knees, sit back into your yogi chair. And take a look down at your toes. See if you can see your toes peeking out beyond your knees. And you can have your hands at heart center, or you can have your biceps up by your ears. Inhale, stand up to extended mountain pose. Exhale, sink back into your yogi chair. This time, bringing your hands to heart center, rotate your torso over to the left. See if you can just rotate your torso. If your knees start moving, if your right knee comes in front of your left knee, pull that knee and that hip back so they stay in line. And it's just your torso rotating. And you're drawing your right elbow towards the outside of your left knee, working towards that. Come back to center, rise up, take a little back bend. Take a breath here. On your next exhale, sink down into your yogi chair one more time. And then leaning the heart forward a little bit to give yourself space for that twist. Start bringing your left elbow towards the outside of your right knee, keeping your knees in line. You might really have to be squeezing your thighs towards each other to keep those knees parallel. Rise up one more time to extended mountain pose. And exhale, forward fold. Plant your hands on the mat. Step one foot back and then the other. And we're going to lower down all the way down to the mat. Squeeze your elbows into your rib cage as you lower gently. And once you're on the mat, we're going to move into a Sphinx pose. But first, we'll warm up with a few low cobras. So without putting a lot of weight into your hands, inhale and peel your chest up off the mat, keeping your neck nice and neutral. And exhale, release all the way down to the mat. Inhale, peel your chest up again. Exhale, release your other cheek down to the mat. And this time, when you inhale, bring your forearms to the mat to support yourself. And you can play with however far away from your body you want your elbows. Some people like their elbows right under their shoulders, and that's going to give a pretty decent back bend. If you want to move your elbows farther away from you, That will change the intensity of the back bend and the location of it a little bit, so it'll be less on your low back. Once you find that sweet spot where you're getting a good back bend, but it's not painful, it's not too intense. If you want to release the low back even further, you can turn your toes in toward each other so that your thighs are rotating inwards. And pull your heart forward through your arms so that you're lengthening your spine as you're in this back bend. We'll take 3 more breaths here. And release everything all the way down to the mat. And we'll get ready to press ourselves back to a tabletop position. So bring your hands under your shoulders, tuck your back toes if you want, push yourself up, back onto your knees, stacking your shoulders over your wrists again and your hips over your knees. And from here, we're going to rise up all the way to standing on our knees. And we'll take what's called a gate pose. So shift your weight into your left knee. If this is a bit hard on your knee, you can put a blanket or a towel underneath to cushion a little bit more. But what we'll do is once you've shifted your weight into your left knee, extend your right leg out to the side and plant your foot down as you would in Warrior Two. So getting your foot as flat on the ground as you can, and see if you can get equal weight in your left knee and in your right foot. So it's not all your weight over on your left leg. So even out that weight, lift your arms up overhead, and we're going to take a side stretch over our right extended leg. So just like the other side stretches, you're drawing the shoulder back so that you can open up the chest. It may not be very far over, and that's okay, because as you're lengthening your left side, you also want to make sure that you're not crunching your right side. You want to keep lifted enough that there's room in your rib cage to breathe, for your lungs to expand. Now, you might be feeling this in a few different places. You may be feeling it in your left side, all the way down to your hip. You may be feeling it in your hip flexor, or you might be feeling it in your inner thigh of your extended leg, or any combination. Take one more breath here. Exhale, release the hand down to your side. bring the right knee back in. Readjust things a little bit. And when you're ready, shift weight into your right knee so that you can extend your left leg. Even out your weight. Lift your arms up overhead with a big breath in. And then reach over your extended left leg. Your right arm is reaching up as much as it is over. Pull that right shoulder back a little bit so your chest is open. And keep breathing here. Make sure you're creating space in your rib cage for your lungs to expand. One more breath. And as you exhale, release your hand down to your side. Bring that left leg back in. Wiggle out anything that needs to be wiggled out. And from here, we're going to bring our fingertips down to the ground for balance as you draw your right foot between your hands. Make sure that your knee is stacked right over your ankle. And for balance, if you want to, you can tuck your back toes or you can leave the top of your foot rested on the mat. When you've got your balance, inhale your arms up overhead and bring your hands to heart center. And we'll take a dragonfly pose from here. So reach your heart forward and then bring your left hand down to the mat on the inside of your front foot. Lift up your right hand to the ceiling so you're twisting towards your front leg. And we'll do 5 breaths here. And release your right hand down to the mat so that your hands are framing your front foot. Send the front foot back and shake it out a little bit. Stretch it out. If you want to make circles, little hip circles with your knee, you can do that. Go in both directions. And then set your knee back down, this time drawing your left foot between your hands, stacking knee over ankle. You can bring your hands to heart center as you rise up if you want. Or you can keep that right hand on the ground. Lift up the left hand to the ceiling for your dragonfly pose. And we'll take 5 breaths here. Your gaze can be up at your top hand, it can be out in front of you, or it can be down on your supporting hand, whatever feels best for your neck. You don't want to strain it. And release your left hand down so you're framing your front foot. Send the front foot back. Stretch it out, shake it out. Make some hip circles if that feels good. And then once you come back to tabletop, we're going to make our way into seated. So you can cross your ankles, sit back, and pull your legs out in front of you or come into seated however you want to. And send your left leg out in front. Cross your right leg over and plant your foot on the floor on the outside of your left leg. We're going to move into a pretzel pose. Now you can stay here with your left leg extended, hugging your right knee into your chest. If you want to change up the intensity, you can pull that left leg in. And if you really want to intensify things, sitting up nice and tall, you can start to bring your gaze over your right shoulder into a mini twist. So you decide what you want this pose to be for you. If you've chosen to take a twist, return your torso to facing center. Release both legs out in front of you. You might want to windshield wiper your legs back and forth or shake them out a little bit before setting up for pretzel on the other side. Place your left foot on the outside of your right leg and give your knee a hug and decide what kind of intensity you want on this side. And it could be the same thing you did on the right side, or it could be totally different, and that's okay. And your options are to fold in your straight leg closer to your body. You can keep it straight, and you can choose to take a little twist by bringing your gaze over your left shoulder this time. And keep breathing. If you took a twist, return to center. Straighten both legs out in front of you. And we'll take a cobbler's pose by bringing the soles of the feet together and drawing the heels in towards the body. And just like in Sphinx pose, you can have your heels closer to your body or farther apart. One's not necessarily easier than the other, but you may feel the sensation in different places. And there's no need to force the knees down towards the ground. You can just let gravity pull them out. If it's a little intense for you, just letting them hang loose, you can use blocks or blankets or rolled up towels up under your knees to make this a more restorative pose. And once you've found your comfortable cobbler's pose, sit up nice and tall. Lead with your heart as you fold forward over your legs. When you can't go any farther with a flat back, you can stay here, or you can release your head and neck so that you're fully collapsed over your legs. When you take long holds in poses in yoga, usually after about a minute and a half or 2 minutes, your body will reach a point where it will say, okay, that's enough, time to back off. That felt great, but I'm done. Or it will say, oh, I think I could go a little bit farther. And depending on the day, depending on the weather, depending on the time of day, your body might be going either way. So as long as you're listening to your body and following that guidance, then your yoga pose is not wrong. So your pose may change throughout the course of the long hold. You may also find yourself getting antsy. That's pretty normal. Long holds are harder because our mind starts to wander. Might start thinking about your to-do list for the day or random thoughts that keep popping up. And it's pretty hard to choose to clear your mind. But when those thoughts come in, when the to-do list starts running, acknowledge the thoughts. Say, okay, they're there. And all those things will be waiting for me when I step off my mat, but they can wait. So acknowledge them, let them pass through, and then let them go. Listen to your body. And if your body says, stay here, then stay here. If your body says it's time to release this pose, Move slowly, 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 because it took you a long time to get into this pose and this deep. So you want to take a long time coming out, inch by inch. But you have time if you'd like to stay here a little longer. When you do come up, keep your head and neck relaxed. Use your hands to slowly press yourself up to seated. Walk your hands back towards your body. Use your hands to draw your knees together and stretch your legs out long. Maybe flex your toes up towards the ceiling. Point your toes away from you. Windshield wiper. Do what feels good. And then we will move into deer pose. So bring your left leg back in like it was, bent with the sole of the foot towards your other leg. And bring your right leg bent behind you so that you're making kind of a spiral with your legs. Use your left hand right behind your spine as a support as you lift up, lift your right arm, lift your hips, and take a little arch here and release back down to the ground. If you want to, you can lean back and find a little bit of a quad stretch before we switch to the other side. So bring your right foot forward, let that knee fall open, left leg comes back bent. Brace yourself with your right hand. And then when you're ready, lift your left arm, lift your hips. Take as much of an arch as feels good for you. And release back down. Option to find that quad stretch by leaning back. You can even set yourself on your forearms. As long as that back knee isn't popping up, you want that knee glued down to the mat. Come back on up. And if your hips are feeling pretty open here, pretty good, I want to show you Fire Log. So for Fire Log, it is a hip opener. Sometimes I really feel it in my glutes though. So what you want to do is you're going to set one leg on top of the other. You're going to stack your right knee on top of your left ankle and your right ankle on top of your left knee. And they may not set exactly on there. So right now I've got a gap between my right knee and my left ankle, and that's okay. You can let it stay there. You can wedge something up in between it, like a blanket or something, to add support. And you can stay right here, or you can choose to fold forward. I wouldn't fold very far forward if you do have a gap here. But sometimes you can get a little bit different sensation than you would in cobbler's pose or other hip openers. And keep breathing. And walk your hands back, lifting your torso. And we'll switch sides. Whatever we do on one side, we want to do on the other. Make sure everything's balanced out. If this is a new pose for you, you may not want to stay very long. You may not want to fold forward. That's okay. If this is feeling really good and you want to stay here longer, you absolutely can. You can stay here for another few seconds if you want to. If you're ready, though, you can walk your hands back towards your body, lifting your torso and uncrossing your legs. Take whatever other movements you need to shake those legs out, release any tension, and we'll work our way onto our back. The way I like getting there is putting my hands behind my thighs, rounding my back and rolling it down to the ground, letting my feet come up. And you can give your knees a good hug into your chest, helping counter all that hip stuff. Maybe even bring your forehead to your knees so you're curled up in a tight, tight ball. And if you're still in your fire log, you can meet us here when you're ready on your back with your knees drawn into your chest. And we'll take a gentle supine twist from here. Tee out your arms or bring them into cactus arms if you don't have a lot of space. And drop your knees, both knees together, over towards your left side. And try to keep your right shoulder planted on the mat. If you want a gentler twist, you can bring your gaze over to your left along with your knees. If you'd like a more intense twist, you can gaze over towards your right side. And engaging your core, bring both knees back to center. Drop them over to the right side this time. Bring both knees back to center. Hug them into your chest one more time. If you want to, you can draw imaginary circles on the ceiling with your knees, massaging your sacrum and your low back. And make circles the other direction. And slide one leg down to the mat, followed by the other one. Reach your hands over your head, point your toes, take a big good morning stretch. Stretching everything out, maybe take a big yawn. And release everything. Find the pose that you want to spend your final rest, your Shavasana in. So you can keep your legs down on the mat, letting your feet fall open, hands relaxing down by your sides. Or you can place your hands on your belly, or you can put your feet flat on the mat, knees bent and knocked together if that feels better for your low back. And once you find your Shavasana pose, let your eyes close as your eyelids feel heavy. And with every breath in and every breath out, your arms and your legs start to feel a little bit heavier, especially in the places that you can feel them connecting to the earth. It's supported by the earth. And this is your time to rest and relax, to thank your body for the hard work that it does for you in yoga and every day, getting you all the different places that you go. And it's your time to let your yoga practice sink in and set in. And there's 5 minutes left in this hour-long yoga practice set aside for Shavasana, but of course, you're welcome to stay here as long as you want to, as long as your schedule allows. So I will close class here, and I thank you so much for doing yoga with us, for taking time out of your day to do this for yourself. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. The light in me sees, honors, and reflects the light in you. Namaste.